tutorial, we're going to look at Photoshop and we're going to be looking at actions and the different things we could do with actions. So to open it up first, I'm going to go to Window and Actions, and here's my Actions panel. So the great thing about Actions, it's available in Illustrator and Photoshop. At Illustrator, there's not the greatest amount of actions or the greatest things you could do with actions, but in Photoshop, you could do a lot with actions. So there's three different things we could do with actions. There's already some default actions that are already given to us, just like there's default actions in Illustrator and there's default libraries in Illustrator and Photoshop. So I have a bunch of defaults here that I can play around with. I'll show you in a second. You could also make your own actions, which I'm going to show you later. And you could also purchase or just download for free actions online if you look for them. I'll show you that as well. So right now what I want to do is just show you what actions are. Actions are generally taking a bunch of steps and putting them into one action and playing that action once. So right now by default, if I give you an understanding here, we have a bunch of different ones: vignette, wood frame, different ones we could do, but I'm just going to go to sepia toning. It's pretty simple. Let's look inside the action and see what it has. If I drop down that arrow, it shows me it's going to take a snapshot. So it's going to put that in my history panel. It's going to make a new layer, and it's going to merge visible, certain things it has in mind. It's going to desaturate the layer and add that sepia tone to it. That's all it's going to do. It's going to do these steps, and then it's going to stop. So let's see what happens when I click on the action, because this is how we make it work. Click on the action and just press play on the image you have. So one image at a time. So I'll click on sepia toning. I'm going to press play. And look at that, 2 seconds later, not even, and I'm ready to go see what happens. So number one, it made a snapshot, an extra snapshot on my history panel. That's a great idea. It duplicated the layer. It made it, played with the hue saturation, and it gave it a sepia tone. And that's all it had to do. I played it. It stopped on its own. Fantastic. So I can use these default actions. I could also make my own. So I'm just going to back up a little bit here through all the actions, go back to my beginning, and I'm just going to start making my own. I'm going to click on the layer, the lock on that layer, click it off once, and it's gone. So now what I'm going to do to make my own action, I'm just going to say new, a new action, because I have a few options down here. I can stop an action, record an action, and play an action. I can make a folder for an action, and I can make a new action or throw an action out. So let me start with a new action. So I'm just going to call this one blend, because I'm going to do some blending with it. Now I could set it to default actions. That's the folder it's going to go to, or I can make a new folder, but for now, simple. And I'm just going to keep this as is for now. I could play around with the function key if I want an action to play a certain way with a keyboard command, or change a color in button mode if I wanted to change it to button mode. Right now I'm just going to press record. It's not okay, it's record, because the second you say yeah, it's recording. Now it doesn't record every single step that you make. It only records certain things. So if I click from one tool to another tool, it doesn't record that. Nothing's been recorded. But if I make a new solid color layer, and I'm going to change it to red, it's fine, it recorded that make fill layer. So it did that. So let's see what else it's going to record. I'm going to change up the blending mode. I'm going to change the blending mode up to overlay, something really out there, something interesting, you know, something we could really see that something's changed. And it recorded that. I'm going to do one more thing. I'm going to click on another blending mode, and I'm going to click on brightness and contrast, and I'm just going to play around in my properties panel with some brightness and contrast, just playing around, and that's it. So I made 3 changes, 3 steps. I'm going to stop the action, and now it's done. Now, if I want, I can actually remove things from an action, click on it and delete it, or I could actually add things to an action. I click on the last step, or whichever step, record again, and start making more recordings, more changes. But for now, I'm happy with this. So what I can do now with another picture used, I'm going to click on my action that I just made, and I'm just going to press play, and let's see what happens. It did the exact thing I wanted it to do. It made a new solid color fill, it blended it to overlay, and it added a new brightness contrast, and there you go. But the good thing about this, obviously we don't love the way this looks, but at least it gave me a step, and now I can start playing around. I can change the color, I can change the overlay if I'm not happy with whatever the overlay is, whatever it is. So not only can it play an action in exactly what I want, or I could actually use those action steps that it gave me and then play around with them from there. So hopefully the actions that you get or you make are well detailed and you can actually go through them. Now that's that part of it, of where I could see the different actions and all those different things that I could do with actions. But let's continue on and see what we can do with playing with more actions. So the next thing I want to show you is some of the actions you can get online. There's one website I like to go to, is brusheasy.com. It's really good because I can go and just type in actions for the search bar, and it's actually going to bring up a ton of different actions. This is a great website. Not only does it have actions, it actually shows you what those actions will do. Now, a simple one that I downloaded already was a desert dust. And it was pretty interesting because it does a nice little change, a nice little effect. And I'm just going to click on that, and I'm just going to type in desert as I've done already. And there is going to be desert dust, which is right here, desert dust. So that's all you do is click on it, download it, and it's going to go into your downloads, and you're going to find a zip file. And what you're looking for is the .atn file. Now, to take that .atn file, well, what do I do with it next? Well, that's all you got to do is go to your applications and go to your Adobe CC 2020 or whichever is your most current one, 2020 right now for me. And I'm going to go to my presets. Under my presets, if I click on that, I'm going to go to actions, and I drop in the ATN file. Now, I've already done that here to make sure it works. So I'm just going to put my desertdust.atn and whichever other actions you ever want to put in. The ATN is the prefix for the name of an action. Okay, so there it is right here. If I ever need to load it, I can just click on my drop-down menu for actions and go down to the action that I have. So there it was, desert dust. I click on it and it showed up. Now let's see what desert dust can do for us. I'm going to go back here again, go back to my original, click on desert dust and just press play. And let's see what happens. There it is. It did exactly what it was supposed to do. It went through all these individual steps and it played around and it finally got me to where it wanted me to go with all these changes. And it looks really cool from before and after, pretty interesting. So you could also download actions from online. Now some can be a little bit tricky because they're not exactly the way that the original person who made them intended compared to your screen or your picture you have, but you could play around with them. And then there's some actions that are very vague in general that work really, really well, just like this one. So check out brusheasy.com if you have a chance to see some of those. So now what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to start making our own action. I'm going to play around with an image here. So this cookie image, nothing happened to it. Let's pretend the common action we may want to make is to save something for print or save something for web. So let's do that right now. So I have this image right now. If I go to my image size, image size, and if I see it's 72 pixels per inch, and it's got some great size depending on what I want to use it for, and that's all well and good. So what I want to do, I want to make this for print. I want to save this and make sure it's print ready, meaning it's going to be CMYK 300 pixels per inch, and I'm going to save it as a TIFF. Now these I did grab from online, so what I want to do, I know that they're 72 pixels, but I know they're also very high resolution and a high dimension. So I'm going to start a new action, and I'm going to call this one for print, and there it is. And I'm not going to make a new set yet. I'm going to move this, but I'm just going to put in my default for now. And I'll say record. So now everything I'm doing is being recorded, but I'm just going to do some simple things. First, I'm going to go to image and mode. I'm going to make it CMYK. That's for print. Nothing changed, perfect. It just recorded that. Now I'm going to go to image size. Now when I go to image size, I want to make it 300 pixels per inch, but I do not want it to resample. So I'm going to click off resample and just make it 300 because clicking on resampling will actually lower the dimension but won't change the pixels, which is what I want. So 300 pixels per inch, I'll say okay. And now I'm going to save it as a TIFF file, save as, and I've already made an organized folder for myself here on my desktop. I called it actions. And for now, I'm just going to put it under print pics. There's nothing there. And I'm just going to call this cookies. And it's going to be a TIFF. A TIFF is the best file format to use for raster images, best quality you can get at the smallest file size you can get for the best quality. So it's going to be a .tiff, and I'm just going to save. And no layers, everything looks good there, fine, done. I'm going to stop the action. The action is done for print, perfect. Now I'm going to make with this, because currently where it is, I'm going to actually close this one down. And then I'm going to open up that exact same one again. Or sorry, a similar type of image that I got, this cookie image. Now once again, this cookie image is 72 pixels per inch, and I don't want that. I want actually an image that is 300. So I will open up the print one I just made, print pics. There's the cookie.tiff. Now let's even see if the action did work. Did it make it CMYK? Yes. Did it make it 300 pixels per inch? Yes, perfect. So now I want to take this exact same image and do another action. Another type of action a normal designer would make would be for web. So I'm going to make a new action. I'll call this one for web. It's going to be my default action set. I'm going to change that later. I'm just going to say record. So now it's going to record, once again, everything I'm doing. Image, mode. This time I'm going to change it back to RGB. nothing changes, but it did record RGB, image, image size, and this time I do want to click on resample because it's going to change the dimensions, the pixel dimensions, and not the size of the physical dimensions, and just say okay. So now it did change it up, the physical dimensions, which is great, and I have 72 pixels print. I'm going to do one more thing. I'm going to go File, Export, Save for Web, and I'll just like the best one I found is PNG 24. It's your highest quality that you can get. JPEGs are great too, but I'm happy with the PNG 24, best quality I can get, and it's relatively low file size. I'm just going to say Save. And now that's where I'm going to put my web pics because I made a web pics folder. And there it is, cookies.png. I'm going to save it. Perfect. Done. I'm going to stop my action, look at both my actions, for print, for web. It just has a few things there. I'm going to make a new folder. I'm going to call this one my own. This is my own actions. And then there it is. There's that. I'm just going to click and drag these two, select, hold down Command or Shift to select them. I'm going to drag them into my own. Now my own, sorry, wrong one. There we go. Now my own has both of those actions in there. Great. And now what I could do if I want, I could just go to the drop-down menu and go to, where is it? Save Actions. And I'm just going to save the action, say on my desktop, my own.atn. I'm going to save them. And that's it. There is my own ATN. If I were to load that into someone else's computer, someone else's actions presets folder, they would get my two that I've made. So you could put them online, you can give them to friends, you could do whatever you want, other designers, so they have those actions as well. And that's how actions work. Now the next thing I want to do is to play around with looking at making a batch process with these. So I'm going to go to File, and I'm going to go to Automate Batch Process. So this is a great tool with actions as well. So what I want to do is I want to take a bunch of pictures and make them for print. So I looked at a bunch of pictures here that I found online. There's 5 images. They're all 72 pixels print in RGB. So what I want to do now is I want to make them for print. So I went to, once again, let me do that one more time, File, Automate, and Batch. And then I go to my own folder, that's the folder that they're in. I want to say for print. I'm going to use the for print action I just made. I'm going to use a folder, that's the source. It's going to go from a folder, and I'm choosing the resource to find all those pictures. I don't even have to open a single picture, and it's going to do this all for me. Apply the action to a batch or a lot of pictures. Next, what I'm going to do, I'm just going to go to my next folder, the destination. I want it to go into my print pics folder. One I've already set up before. I can set it up again if I needed to. If I don't have one yet, just say new folder and make a new folder. I'm just going to say choose, and then I'm going to make sure I'm going to play around with the file, how it's actually going to save the file. So I'm going to say that the name of each file is going to be cookie. So I just say the name of the file, document name, lowercase. Then I'm going to say cookie. Then I'm going to say that I want one digital serial number. So it doesn't keep saving over top of itself. It just makes a new, a 1, a 2, a 3, a 4, how many pictures I have. And then I wanted to actually put the extension on there as well. So for now, I'm just going to say, okay. And that's it. So as it goes through, it's going to actually open each of those images, all 5 of them, and it's going to save them for print. That's it. Done. It did it. I didn't need to do a single thing. Let me go to print pics. There they are. Cookie 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and my initial one I had in there. Now let's open one up just to be on the safe side. Go to Photoshop, click it in, image size. I went a little bit bigger because that size was a little bit bigger, but either way, it did change it to print, 300 pixels per inch, and it made it a TIFF, which is fantastic. So that's what I wanted it to do. CMYK as well. Perfect. Now let's do the opposite. I'm going to go to File and do it again. Automate, Batch, but this time I'm going to choose for web that I want the action to change all the pictures that I have for the web, make them RGB 72 pixels per inch. So I'm going to go to choose, but this time I'm going to choose the print pics, and I'm going to say yes, I want all those print pics, and I want to convert those into web ready pics. So I'm just going to go to my web pics folder, and hopefully it does the same. So it's going to take the print pics that I just made, and it's going to put them into the web pics folder with the for web action. So I'm just going to say, okay, once again, cookie, And let's do a capital C just to be on the safe side. We could see those cookie, one digital serial number. Once again, I could add all these different ones, a year, a date, a certain way that it's laid out, whatever I want, or none, or I could add many. I'm just going to leave it alone and say, okay. And it's going to go through all of them. Now, it may ask me to save them individually, which is totally fine. I can just press okay, okay, okay. Now it's going through them, trying to figure it all out. Done. Let's see what happened. I'm going to go to my web pics, and there they all are. Now, it saved them as a TIFF as well. I don't know why, but that's okay. I do have all my PNGs. Let's bring one in just to be on the safe side. Let's see the image size, 72 pixels per inch, and yes, it's RGB. So batch processing is a great way to open tons of photos, apply an action to them, and then they get saved somewhere else, and you never had to open a single image. So actions are a great way to make multiple steps and different things that you could do. Filters, you could make filters, so many different things you could do in an action, save it, and then you're able to make it an action and play that action back on any picture you want and play around with it. So there are actions for you.